Hello, Lincoln Elementary. This is Emily Moore, and today we are going to talk about People First language. To start off, some facts for you. About 1 in 4, or 61 million U.S. adults, report having some form of a disability. People with a disability lead everyday lives. Many of them go to school, go to work, they get married, have children, and have just a normal everyday life like everyone else. Disability is part of human experience, but people use words that do not promote understanding or respect for people with disabilities. Sometimes this isn't intentional or meant to come off in the way that it does, but this happens. For too long, people with disabilities have been subjected to devaluation, marginalization, prejudice, and more. And the first way that people devalue someone is through their language and the way that they speak to them. Using words or labels to identify a person as less than, as the other, or not like us are some examples of devaluing someone. So, what is People First language? People First language is used to communicate appropriately and respectfully with and about individuals with disabilities. It emphasizes the person first, not the disability. People First language um, is when you refer to a person with a disability by using the phrases such as a person who, a person with, or a person who has. It is not political correctness, but it demonstrates good manners, respect, and the golden rule. It also changes the way that we see a person and how they see themselves, and I think that's super important to remember in People First language. Just some general tips for you in remembering People First language. One, you always want to emphasize the abilities, not limitations. You do not use language that suggests the lack of something, um, and you emphasize the need for accessibility, not the disability. Do not ever use offensive language, and avoid language that implies negative stereotypes. And six, do not portray people with disabilities as inspirational only because of their disability. So, some of the things that we tend to say in our school building, we tend to say like the SPED kid or the SPED student, and we're all guilty of this. And these are really hard um, to see sometimes as not being correct. And we've said them so long. So we've really got to be intentional about the things that we say. Um, or maybe he's autistic or the normal student. And so what we should say is instead of the SPED student, they receive special education services. Instead of saying he is autistic, saying he has autism. Um, and then the normal students, we should say the student without a disability. Some other examples, you should say just a couple of them. Sarah, what you should say, Sarah has a learning disability, um, instead of saying she's learning disabled. I think that one's used a lot. Oh, excuse me. Um, saying you should say brain injury instead of brain damaged. Accessible parking, or instead of saying handicap parking. Um, Again, the children without disabilities instead of saying a normal or a healthy or a typical kid. Um, Another example would be Tom has a mental health condition instead of saying he's emotionally disturbed or mentally ill. And that there's many more examples there for you if you want to read over those. I love this People First language pledge, which we're all going to sign. And it says, words matter. For too long, hurtful words have been used about people who have disabilities. So I pledge to make changes in how I think and talk, and will use People First language to put the person first, not the disability. The examples below will be my guide. Using people first language is about having respect and following the golden rule. And then it says, I will say, and lists these instead of, and then gives a list to go with that. I also pledge not to use the R word or terms like idiot, imbecile, moron, psycho, lame, sped kid, special needs, and other disability labels that are used as insults or that may be hurtful. I will treat others as I want to be treated. Again, which is that golden rule. So we will all sign that. And I just thought this was a great pledge for us to sign and just to make our brains aware of what, to be proactive in what we're doing. Some reminders for you. Our language shapes our attitudes. Our attitudes shape our language, and they both drive our action. Um, People first language is the best place to start when talking to a person with a disability. If you are unsure, ask that person how they would like to be described or addressed. And it is important to remember that preferences can vary from person to person. Here are the resources that I used. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation.